Welcome to a special edition of First and Future. A lot of you know that we've been doing our podcast now for 4 years. This is our 239th show, but we're trying something brand new today. Last year, about 10,000 of you, a little bit more, tuned in, a lot of you live and others of you on tape for a series of shows that we called Zoomcasts, focusing on a variety of issues that came up during the time of the pandemic. This is like that in that it's live, but we're using a new format that enables us to show the guests live, including some information on the screen to let you know what we think. And what we want to hear from you is whether this works, and we'll try to get better over time. So with that, welcome to First and Future. If you're joining us live on video, thank you for being here. If you're listening to the audio version, thank you for tuning in. Either way, we're super excited to have you today because we're talking about the upcoming Emerging Issues Forum. And this year, it is no overstatement to say that this is going to be our most ambitious forum ever. We're doing it all virtually. That's good. It means you can watch in your jammies if you want to. We're doing it over 4 days. We've never done that long a forum before. And we're just going to have a crazy, exciting range of guests. Some will be talking to you and at you. Others will be talking with you. Others you'll be talking to in real time. So there are going to be some real opportunities for you to ask questions, share your insights, to meet people from across the state who are working to reconnect their communities in a variety of ways. And we know a lot of you are too. So we want you to be part of this. So this show is designed to convince you that it's a good idea. We want you to be part of the forum February 15th through 18th. It's going to be virtual. So let's just start with some registration info. First, pretty easy. Go to emergingissues.org and sign up. But my guess is you probably want to know more. And that's kind of what this next 25 minutes or so is about. We have brought on with us our connector-in-chief, Sarah Langer Hall, who has been with us from the beginning. Sarah, let me just welcome you and say that congratulations. You are our first ever 5-time guest on First and Future.
Thank you so much for having me. Do I get a special jacket or how does that work?
You do. This jacket is going to be available for the next 15 minutes. If you come by to claim it, just please come by and claim it. After 15 minutes, that offer expires. So please know that this jacket is yours to claim for the next 15 minutes only. Sarah, let me just reflect that you've been with IEI for a number of years now. And during that time, you've given birth to forums and you've given birth to children. And I'm wondering if there's any comparison between those two acts.
Yeah, that's actually a really great analogy. I didn't do my first forum until about 5 years after I started. And so it was nice. I got to sort of watch how others did it and observe sort of what worked and what didn't. And then, of course, when it was my turn to lead a forum, I felt like, I was the only person. No one else could possibly understand what I was going through doing this forum. And I wanted to be so perfect. And I remember getting to this point where I just was like hyper detailed, sort of like when you're pregnant and you're nesting, and you just want to tie up all these loose ends. And then the day happens, it's a total blur. And after a few months, you forget how hard it was. And then you do your second one and it's a little bit easier. It's a different topic, but kind of the same experience. So I think that's spot on.
So I said this was a special forum, but I left out one element of the specialness of it, and that is that it is our 35th forum. We started all this back in 1986. So this is the 35th year of forums for IEI, and the topics have changed a lot over the years, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The first one focused on our economic competitiveness in this new global economy back in 1986. It was actually a topic we revisited in 2015. So it's really exciting that we're now in our 35th year.
I'm going to put back on my jacket. Just know it's still yours to claim if you would like to. But let's talk about the Reconnect series, because for the past 3 years, we've been doing something a little different. And that is, rather than having a completely new topic each year, instead, we've been focusing on this theme of reconnection. So we started in November 2018, focusing on civic connection, the importance of reconnecting to your community. And then in February 2019, the importance of reconnecting rural and urban and strengthening those connections. November 2019, connecting adults to education options. Then February of 2020, the importance of broadband connections. And then in October 2020, talked about the growing disconnect of people from mental health services. And throughout that, you've been the person responsible for connecting the dots between these different topics. And I'm wondering how you're going to bring all that together, even over 4 days. How do you bring together 2.5 years of learning into a concentrated period of time?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And the good news is that I didn't have to do it all by myself. I actually had a great team, and Alicia James and Maggie Woods, who helped me plan many of these different forums, actually led forums themselves. We each took turns leading them. And then, of course, we had a great team, a great communications operations team, and others. So I didn't do it all by myself. And, I guess for the upcoming forum, I just want to acknowledge, we're in this moment right now that just feels really heavy. So we've got the mental toll of this global pandemic and what it's doing to our families and the economy, and this continuing weight of structural racism and all of the polarization that's happening. And so we could have a forum where we talk about all of this negativity, but I don't think that's where people are at right now. I think we're ready for some inspiration, some messages of hope. And so I think that's what we really want to accomplish with this forum is, inspiring stories and how to, but also, concrete examples of what communities are doing. So over the 4 days, we'll talk about why we need to reconnect as a state. We'll offer up what strategies we can move forward, and then discuss how we do that in a meaningful and equitable way. And we're really going to be bringing in the best of the best to help us do that.
Yeah, throughout this, we've talked about the notion of realistic optimism. And I think one of the things you just mentioned reminded me of that. It is that what we don't want is for people to leave this 4-day period wanting to poke their eyes out. We want to send them off soaring with optimism and realism, but a sense that there is a path forward. And I think that's one of the tones that you and Maggie and Alicia have all managed to set as we go through these forums, that yes, there are very real challenges we are facing. And yes, there are amazing people who are doing things about them, doing things to address them, doing things to move them forward right now. And they're not far away. They're all across North Carolina.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Good.
Let's just talk through this, because there's a lot right now that if somebody goes to our agenda online, which we want everybody to do, they could say, oh my gosh, 4 days, how could I possibly deal with that? So let's just talk a little bit about what happens on each day. So day one, we start out, we're obviously an organization based at NC State, and Chancellor Woodson's going to open just like Chancellor Bruce Polton did back in 1986. And so we're going to hear from Chancellor Woodson and kind of get situated there. But then we turn to David Brooks. And in my mind, he's the person who over the last period that we've been doing this work on reconnection has written more, said more, thought more about reconnection maybe than anybody else in the country. What are you expecting to hear, and what might people get out of listening to David Brooks on February 15th?
Yeah, so, for the last several years, he's been involved with this project at the Aspen Institute called WEAVE, which has really been committed to renewing America's social fabric. So that term that he likes to use. And what that means is really shifting from this culture of hyper-individualism to one that puts relationships at the center. And so that's, I think, perfectly aligned with Reconnect. And it's why we chose him to be our opening keynote speaker 3 years ago when we kicked off our series. We invited him back to hear what he's learned over the last couple of years. And really, he accepted our invitation because he wants to hear what we've learned over the last couple of years as well. So I think we're going to hear a lot more about some of these people that are helping to weave inclusive communities, and talking more with you about how we've been doing that in North Carolina.
Pretty immediately after that will be a panel of people from across North Carolina who will be able to react to what David Brooks has said, but also provide their own perspective. What are you hoping for from that group of people?
Well, I think what we want to do is acknowledge that, not everybody knows what, reconnection or reconnect in North Carolina might mean different things to different people. And so I think we would expect to see a lot of differences in perspective, but also some commonalities. So I think it's really painting a picture of what we mean by reconnected North Carolina, why it's so important in our work to reconnect, and what are some specific things that our people are doing to reconnect in their own ways in their own communities.
We're going to unveil at the time one recommendation for each of the topics that we've taken on. And I think the challenge you've had and I've had and others who've been talking about it are, how can we narrow down these topics that we spent entire days on and have been working on for a while down to one thing? Can you talk a little bit about how these recommendations, where these came from, and what size people should be thinking these recommendations are? What's the strategy behind these?
Yeah, so the first thing I just want to say is that these are not recommendations that are the only ideas or even the biggest or best ideas, right? These are ideas that we heard through the previous forums and from some of the community members and stakeholders that we've talked to. These are ideas that came up that we just think people could get excited about. So that's why we're calling them ideas to ignite. We think people really could get mobilized behind them, and we think they're fairly doable and actionable if people just committed to moving them forward. And so again, these aren't the only ideas, but they're just steps that we can take to get us closer to, I think, where we eventually need to go.
We've got obviously full agendas every day. I know one of the negotiations you and I had back and forth was whether to include a speaker from the Buffalo Bills or the Carolina Panthers, and you very graciously agreed that Shaq Thompson probably was the right speaker to have. Can you talk a little bit about his work with the Panthers, not as a football player, but as a human being and as a community member who's helping to reconnect?
Sure. So salt in the wound, Leslie, salt in the wound. But so Shaq Thompson is actually the Carolina Panthers. He's a star linebacker with the Panthers, and he is their team's nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year. And really, that's each team nominates someone who their player that they think is most civic-minded and service-driven. And so Shaq is doing incredible work. He started a foundation, and he's supporting low-income youth, children in foster care, and has even been involved in bridge building between the police and the community in Charlotte. And so for many reasons, he is just a champion on and off the field. And I want to hear more about what he's doing and why civic engagement is important to him and what message he has for others to do more.
So day one, as I see it, is kind of a level set. It's saying, hey, we've learned a bunch of stuff. Here's some ideas. And then days 2 and 3 are a chance to really begin to put those ideas into practice on a community level. And it's almost a perfect marriage between these two streams of work that IEI has been doing on reconnecting, but also we have this incredible team of people who've been working on what we call rural faith communities as anchor institutions. And they've been learning a lot about working in community. And so it's these two strands of work that IEI has been doing coming together for days 2 and 3. Can you talk about what someone might get out of joining those workshops on days 2 and 3?
Yeah, so, I would say that day 1, again, we're going to be talking about the why reconnect and what strategies will help us reconnect. And then we're going to get to the how. And so I think these sessions, these 8 capacity building sessions that range in topics from, strategic planning to investment, community investment, to even creativity and innovation. These conversations will be for folks that are working on the ground that want to take their program to the next level or figure out how to best get engaged with the issue, with a challenge or an opportunity in their community. So hopefully this is a first taste at some additional capacity that they'll be looking to explore in the coming, months and years ahead.
So the topics have come from what our faith team has been learning and also what we've been learning through the communities we've been working with. And some people may not know that over the past period of time that we've been doing Reconnect, we've identified slowly these groups of places across the state that are working on each of these topics. Can you talk a little bit about what we call the cohort concept for each of these topics?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's one thing to research connection and talk to partners, but it's another thing entirely to be in contact with the communities that are actually doing the work. And so that's really what inspired Reconnect NC. Is we knew that there were communities, community efforts that were trying to move the needle in reconnection across the state. And we knew that they were having successes and some challenges, and that there were a lot of opportunities to learn from them and lift up what they were learning with others across the state. We call them bright spots, and we hope that they will serve as an inspiration to other communities that are looking to either get started or need that inspiration or motivation to continue on. And so there's 26 community and regional initiatives across 5 different topics. And we've invited them all to be with us at the forum as well to share, what they're learning with a broader audience.
I know each time that we have done these requests for ideas, there's the fear, oh my gosh, maybe nobody's working on this. And every time it turns out that there are indeed these places, and they're not all in urban areas, they're not all in rural areas, not in the east or west, but they're this great combination of people from places large and small that are all doing something remarkable on each of these topics. And so what I've liked about it is that there's at least one of these groups that almost any county in North Carolina could copy if they wanted to, or learn something from. So that's been one of the big excitements for me. So on some level, we've kind of got a recap of what we've been doing on day 1 and some ideas to go forward. And then day 2 and 3, we're saying, okay, if you're in community, what could you possibly do? How could you begin to move this forward? What are we learning? And we've got these great people who've been there, done that, who are going to be sharing their ideas. And that's going to be a great chance for people to bring their ideas to the table, bring their questions to the table. What happens on day 4? So now we're into day 4 of this forum. What are people going to learn that day? What are you excited about?
Yeah, so I think day 4 is just really about what next, right? So it's a longstanding tradition to have the governor join us and speak at the forum, and this time is no different. Governor Cooper's platform has been around creating a North Carolina and an economy that works for all. And so he's going to share a little bit with us about what his administration has been doing to work towards achieving that. One session I'm really excited about is we're partnering with PBS North Carolina to have a connection about the power of food when it comes to reconnection. And so they're actually launching a new series this spring, starring a cookbook author and food writer, Sherry Castle. And so Sherry's going to be with us to do a cooking demonstration, as well as bringing in a couple of other panelists to talk about the power of connection and, really thinking about how many conversations across difference have happened over food. So I'm really excited to hear from some great chefs and farmers locally. So I think that'll be great. And then to continue on the theme of food, on that theme of conversation across difference, we'll have Leslie Winter and John Hood, who currently co-chair the North Carolina Leadership Forum. And they're going to be talking about a dialogue across difference and some recent reflection from sensible discourse that will be happening earlier in the week.
So those are 2 people who, if you had to position them politically, would be kind of at opposite ends of a political spectrum. And they've had some experience over the past 3 years trying to figure out how to help people on different sides of political issues learn how to talk to each other, right?
Yeah, they've been talking about topics from, economic opportunity or economic mobility. They've talked about immigration, most recently COVID-19. And so the idea isn't to come to consensus on who's right and who's wrong. It's to listen, ask questions, and better understand the perspective of the other person.
All right, so we're coming to the end, and people will have had this great, inspiring week with great speakers. And you've asked a fellow named Rich Harwood to join us. Can you give us just a little bit of background on him and where he comes from and what kind of message he's going to be bringing?
Yeah, so I have to say that we're really grateful to the North Carolina State University Speakers and Lecturers Committee, because with support of the Harrelson Fund, they've been able to bring Rich on, and he's with the Harwood Institute, and basically is all about how you can better mobilize and inspire communities to build local capacity for change. And so, he, for the last couple of decades, has been doing this deep community work, most notably with Sandy Hook after what happened there a couple of years ago, really focused on community healing. And so I think this is really going to get at the how. I think this is really going to get at the what's next, and leave folks inspired, leave folks ready to leave the forum feeling that they do have a path forward in reconnecting North Carolina.
So you've just done a lightning tour through 4 days of programming that has just been a labor, we hope, of love for you to pull together. Just a great coalition of ideas and information, something for everyone. But somebody might be listening to this and saying, I can't possibly take 4 days off. Can you help people get in the right frame of mind to, okay, if I am interested in this, which day absolutely should I go to? And if I'm interested in this thing, what days should I go to? And obviously, we want everybody to take a week off from work so they can do this. But can you just give a sense of, okay, if you're in a community, what part might resonate most with this? Or if you're a legislator, what part might resonate most? Can you kind of parse that out a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, I think with virtual, what we've learned is that you really do need to, design an agenda to meet people where they're at. So we sort of did design that with those, preferences in mind. I would say if you're a policy wonk, you might be interested in the big ideas or to hear from the governor. If you're on the ground in the community, you might want to be, going to the capacity building sessions. If you're a foodie, you want to come to our PBS partner session. And if you simply want to be inspired, I would say come to all of it, but especially to hear our opening and closing keynote speakers, David Brooks and Rich Harwood.
All right. Sarah Langer Hall, thank you for leading this work, for being a 5-time guest. And I'm guessing if people reach out to you directly, you would be willing to share a photo of the snowman that you created during the recent snow day. The most impressive snow construction I heard from North Carolina's most recent snowfall.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. That's what happens when you build a snowman at 8 a.m.
Sarah Langer Hall is IEI's Senior Policy and Program Manager. The Emerging Issues Forum, Reconnect for the Future, runs February 15th through 18th. Sign up today at emergingissues.org. That is our show for today. First in Future is powered by the IEI communications team. Greg Hedgepath is our director of communications. The producer of First in Future is James Herrick. Kirsten Chang gets the word out about the show. I'm Leslie Boney. For all of us at NC State's Institute for Emerging Issues, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the forum and see you in the future.